dog training stayed at a pretty, what I would call, and this is a judgment, a dark place for probably 100 years, where dogs were treated like animals, like they didn't have a soul and they didn't have the right to an opinion, and they sure as heck weren't ever given a choice, often trained just by avoiding the pain of punishment. That was their reinforcement, was if you do things the way I tell you, you won't be punished. Now, there was a very, very slow evolution, but even when I became a professional dog trainer in the late 80s, it was still unheard of to do some of the things that I decided I wanted to try, and particularly in dog sports. And I competed in the sport of dog obedience and fly ball and dog agility. And when I would say, I want to do this little game, people would say, you're going to ruin your dog. Or they would say, that might work for Susan Garrett because she's such a good dog trainer, but that won't work for anybody else. Well, the things that people were saying would only work for Susan Garrett now are just a recognized common approach to training something like weave poles or a seesaw. So there has been an exponential rate of growth in dog training since that time, since the late 80s, 30 plus years ago. But we're still relatively new in our growth. So when somebody says, you can't do that with just reinforcement, or I could get there better with punishment, you know what? They might be correct that there are things we are still learning, but I promise you, if there is something that can be achieved with more clarity and potentially more kindness to the dog if you just punished them, then that would keep us locked in a cycle where we are constantly turning to punishment to fix that, whatever that is. And we all would be back in the 80s. If it wasn't for me willing to say, I'm going to risk the success I've had now for the chance to have as much success or potentially more, doing things in a way that aligns my heart with my dogs. And I was willing to take that chance because I knew I could always go back to what I used to know. And if you're listening to this and you choose to be a trainer that uses punishment, first of all, thank you. Thank you for feeling safe to listen to this podcast. I want to challenge you that it's hard to grow when you won't look outside what you deem is the only way to do things. And so I want to challenge you that even if this has worked for 100 dogs, even if it's worked for 1,000 dogs, I know without a shadow of a doubt, in 20 years, in 50 years, and in 100 years, punishment at some point, the use of positive punishment in dog training will be just a mark in a history book. And so I challenge you to get ahead of the curve, to say, okay, I know how I used to do things. I'm going to try things differently. And that's what years ago, there was a woman by the name of Debbie Zapia who was giving seminars in the sport of, I'm going to get this wrong, IPO or Schutz, and the names changed quite a bit. And Debbie came to a seminar I was giving at Cornell University. Now, Debbie Zapia came to me after that seminar and said, I would like you to help me with this dog that I bought. And I think I've told the story of Debbie Zapia on a previous podcast. So the long story short is that she was willing to give up what she knew, what had brought her. She was already a world team member, the U.S. world team member in this sport. But she took this dog that nobody wanted because he was deemed like too soft, and she used some of my methodology, and she went on to become vice champion of the world with that dog. And so I applaud people like her. We all have our own confirmation bias. And so we all, like you drive out of the car lot with that brand new Toyota Sienna and you go, all of a sudden, everybody in your city has driving a Toyota Sienna. How did that happen? It happened because your beliefs have changed because you now drive that car. And so you're on the lookout to look for that car. Just like if you believe that reinforcement training doesn't work, your confirmation bias will have you scanning your city for opportunities to point fingers at, see, I told you it doesn't work. Look how flawed this methodology is. And I've spoken about the belief loop so many times that belief is what creates our thoughts, and our thoughts creates our emotions, which gives our actions, which gets the outcomes that we have. And so to change that belief loop, you have to challenge your beliefs, which I'm asking you to do. And I will tell you, I challenge my own all the time. And that's why I'm constantly curious as to what else we can do better as reinforcement-based dog trainers.